At that point, something creative stirred in the northern half of Germanic France. A heroic warrior family emerged to exercise leadership over other Germanic chieftains. This family's lands lay in the Seine Valley, where high productivity of oats fed the horses belonging to the family's armoured cavalry. The Muslim advance into France was halted in the 730s, and the Arabs were driven back to Spain. Out of this one warrior family came the Emperor Charlemagne, who reigned from 768 to 814. He gathered at his court in Aachen in the Rhine Valley the most learned churchmen from not only France, but also England and northern Italy. And there was an intensive recovery of classical Latin learning and remarkable progress in all the arts. This new Carolingian civilization of Western Europe was politically too fragmented to withstand a renewed Scandinavian invasion in the 9th century. Charlemagne's great empire slowly split apart after his death into a myriad of feudal principalities. But both west and east of the Rhine River in the 10th century, an aristocratic family persuaded the Church to designate it the holder of the title and privileges of sacred kingship. Thereby, the memory of the ambitious Carolingian experiment of a unified political system was preserved into the new era of population growth, economic expansion, improved literacy, and stabilized political and social order that marked the late 10th century. Herein, in this space and time, northern France, southern England, the Rhine and Rhone valleys, and northern Italy around the year 1000, lies the crucible of medieval Europe. By the year 1000, European society was relatively stable and successful, at least in comparison with the chaos and disintegration of 600. Western Europe was growing, economically and intellectually. Technological resources increasingly were integrated with the social structure. And the elite class of landed nobility was self-confident and reasonably efficient. The population was still thin, but it had started to increase rapidly for the first time since about AD 400. No one has fully explained why the population was static for 600 years, but historians blame disease, the meagre food supply, and the chronic violence of European society. There always is an unknown factor in demography, but it is generally true that populations grow in times of economic prosperity, such as the late 10th century. The population of Western Europe in 1000 is estimated at 10 million people, close to what it was in the Roman Empire. The environment was still primitive and underdeveloped, and perhaps half of Western Europe was still useless for agriculture. Large parts of Germany, northern France, and central England were covered with huge uninhabited forests, while some areas facing the North Sea and the Low Countries, northern Germany, and eastern England were unusable marshlands. These coastal lands have been fruitful since the 17th century, but at the end of the 10th century nobody in Europe knew anything about drainage, and the shoreline was in many places much further inland in 1000 than it is today. Between the 4th and the 18th century, no one in Europe knew how to build good roads, and apart from a few Roman survivals, there were no real roads in 11th century Europe. Europe was fortunate, however, in its extensive river system, especially involving the Rhine, which made long-distance travel and commerce possible. The Danube was too far east for all except Vikings and Slavs and a few intrepid merchants, but there was heavy traffic on the Rhine, the Seine, the Rhone, and the estuary of the Thames. Centres of population grew up near rivers, and the noticeable emptiness of most of central France can be ascribed to the absence of useful rivers. Western Europe remained technologically backward in 1000, but its agricultural situation had been improved around 800 by the coming into general use of a heavy, wheeled plough. Farmers began at last to get fairly good yields from their hard soil, which required a deep furrow. The light ploughs of the Romans, which scratched the thin surface of the Mediterranean soil,